Akron video that shook the NBA. A single video from Akron just turned LeBron James's free agency into a full-blown NBA mystery. Not a press conference, not a Woj bomb, not a carefully written statement from his agent, just a phone camera, a crowded room, some music, and LeBron James standing in the one place that can still make Cleveland fans lose their breath home. At first, it looked simple. LeBron was at house 330 inches Akron, enjoying an R&B night, dancing, smiling, moving like a man who had no interest in feeding rumor. But in the NBA, nothing involving LeBron is ever just casual, because once fans look closer, they notice the person standing near him, Brandon Weems. That name changed everything. Weems is not just some Cavaliers employee. He is Cleveland's assistant general manager. More importantly, he is one of LeBron's oldest friends, a former high school teammate from Street Vincent Street, Mary. A man connected to LeBron long before championships, MVPs, Miami, Los Angeles, or billion-dollar headlines ever existed. And suddenly, in the middle of LeBron's first truly open free agency moment in years, there he was right beside him in Akron. That is why the internet exploded, because this did not happen in isolation. Rich Paul had already called Weems a major advantage for Cleveland, almost like a secret weapon sitting inside the Cavaliers front office. Then, hours later, cameras caught LeBron standing with that exact same man in the city that built his legend. For fans, that was not random. That was a signal. And then Bronny James' name got pulled into the storm. Reports around the league suggested Cleveland might be keeping a roster spot open in case LeBron decides to come back. And not just for LeBron, but possibly for Bronny too. Suddenly, this was no longer only about a superstar choosing his final stop. It became about a father, a son, a hometown, a front office connection, and one last chance to write a story the NBA would never forget. But here is the real question. Is this the beginning of LeBron's third Cleveland chapter, or just another breadcrumb in the most dramatic free agency chase of his career? Because the Cavaliers have emotion on their side. They have history. They have Akron. They have Weems. They might even have a plan for Bronny. But they also have a salary cap problem, rival teams circling, and a decision maker in LeBron, who has never rushed the biggest choices of his life. So before this story goes any deeper, tell me where you are watching from right now. If you think LeBron is really going back to Cleveland, comment 1. If you think he is using the Cavs rumors as leverage, comment 2. And if you want the next chapter of this NBA drama, subscribe right now, because this story is just getting started. Why Brandon Weems changes everything. The reason that Akron video hit so hard was not just because LeBron James was back in his hometown. It was because of the man standing near him. Brandon Weems may not be a household name for casual NBA fans, but inside this story, he might be one of the most important pieces on the board. He is not just a Cavaliers assistant general manager. He is not just another front office executive trying to shake hands with a superstar. He is part of LeBron's original circle. One of the people who knew him before the world knew him. Before the championships, before Miami, before Los Angeles, before the final streaks, before the scoring record, there was Akron. There was Street Vincent Street Mary. There was a young LeBron James surrounded by teammates, friends, and people who watched the beginning of something historic before anyone knew how big it would become. Brandon Weems was there. That is what makes this different. In most free agency stories, teams sell stars on money, roster fit, market size, championship chances, and front office vision. But Cleveland has something nobody else can manufacture. They have history. They have roots. They have people inside the building who do not need to explain what Northeast Ohio means to LeBron, because they lived it with him. That is why Rich Paul's comments mattered so much. When LeBron's agent publicly pointed to Weems as a major advantage for Cleveland, fans immediately understood the message. This was not just about the Cavaliers being interested. This was about Cleveland having a personal bridge directly into LeBron's trust circle. In a league where relationships can decide everything, that kind of connection is powerful. And then the timing became almost impossible to ignore. First, Rich Paul identifies Weems as an X factor. Then, almost immediately, LeBron appears in Akron standing near Weems while free agency rumors are already exploding. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was just old friends enjoying a night out. Maybe the cameras caught something that meant nothing. But in the NBA, timing is never treated as innocent. Fans started connecting dots within minutes. Cleveland media picked it up. National accounts clipped the footage. The conversation shifted from, could LeBron return, to, is Cleveland already moving behind the scenes? That is the danger of a viral moment. It does not have to prove anything. It only has to feel like it proves something. And this felt loud, because if LeBron is truly choosing the final chapter of his career, trust matters. Comfort matters. Family matters. Legacy matters. A front office with one of his oldest friends inside it can make a cold business decision feel personal again. That does not guarantee Cleveland wins, but it gives them something. Golden State, Denver, Minnesota, Miami, and Philadelphia cannot copy. They can offer stars, they can offer systems, they can offer title chances, but they cannot offer Akron. They cannot offer the feeling of coming back to the place where everything started, and they cannot offer Brandon Weems. That is why one video became bigger than a party. Because sometimes in the NBA, the biggest signal is not a contract, it is not a meeting, it is not a report. Sometimes it is one familiar face standing next to the right superstar at exactly the right time. And for Cleveland, that familiar face may have just changed the entire race. Bronny James becomes the hidden key. But the moment this story became truly complicated was the moment Bronny James entered the conversation. Because this is not a normal LeBron James free agency chase anymore. For most of his career, teams only had to answer one question: how do we get LeBron? Now they may have to answer a second one: what do we do with Bronny? That one question changes everything. Reports around the league suggested Cleveland had been unusually quiet in free agency for a reason. Not because the Cavaliers lacked ambition, not because they had no moves left, but because they may have been holding a roster spot open in case LeBron decided to return, and that spot could matter for Bronny James. That is where the story turned from basketball rumor into family drama. Think about what that really means. A team with championship hopes, expensive contracts, playoff expectations, and a fan base starving for another banner may be shaping its roster around the possibility of bringing in both father and son. That is not normal NBA business. That is legacy planning, that is relationship management, that is a front office understanding that with LeBron, the emotional side and the basketball side are impossible to separate. Bronny is not just a name attached to his father anymore. He is part of the negotiation, and that puts him in an extremely difficult position. On one hand, being connected to LeBron gives Bronny opportunities most young players could never imagine. Teams will look at him not only as a developing guard, but as a piece of a much larger picture. If adding Bronny helps bring LeBron through the door, then every serious contender has to at least think about it. But on the other hand, that same connection creates pressure that most young players could never survive. Every minute he plays gets judged. Every missed shot becomes a debate. Every roster decision involving him becomes a national argument. If he succeeds, people say it happened because of his father. If he struggles, people say he never belonged. That is a brutal place for any young player to live. And yet Cleveland may see value beyond the headline. Bronny has shown flashes as a defensive-minded guard. He has worked to become a possible 3-and-D bench piece, the kind of player who does not need the ball all night but can defend, hit open shots, and play a role. That matters, especially on a team trying to compete. He does not have to be a star to have value. He has to be useful, disciplined, and willing to grow. Still, nobody is pretending the basketball evaluation is the only reason this matters. If Cleveland can give LeBron a chance to return home and keep playing alongside his son, that becomes a powerful pitch. Not just come chase a ring, not just come fix the Cavaliers, but come finish the story with your family in the place where the story began. That is emotional, that is cinematic, that is exactly the kind of ending fans would replay for years. But it also comes with risk. If Bronny arrives with LeBron, every Cavs loss will become a debate. Every rotation decision will be questioned. Every young player who loses minutes will become part of the conversation. The locker room would have to accept that this is not a normal signing. It would be a basketball move, a family move, and a legacy move all at once. That is why Bronny is the hidden key. He may not be the biggest name in the deal. He may not be the most important player on the court, but he could be the piece that determines which team understands LeBron's final chapter the best. Because at this stage of LeBron's career, the decision is not only about winning, it is about how he wants the ending to feel. Bronny's pressure outside, LeBron's shadow. The hardest part of this entire story may belong to Bronny James. Because while the NBA world debates LeBron's next move, Cleveland's salary cap, Golden State's pitch, and the emotional pull of Akron, Bronny is the one standing in the middle of a storm he did not create by himself. Most young players get time to grow quietly. They make mistakes, spend time developing, learn from veterans, and slowly earn their place. Bronny does not get that luxury. Every shot, every minute, every roster move connected to him becomes a national conversation. When he plays well, people say it is because of his name. When he struggles, critics say he never belonged. That is the burden of being LeBron James' son. And now, with LeBron possibly leaving Los Angeles, the question around Bronny becomes even louder. If LeBron goes somewhere else, what happens to his son? That is what makes Cleveland's reported interest so important. If the Cavaliers are truly keeping space open for Bronny, They are not just chasing a headline, they are trying to build a situation that could make LeBron's final chapter feel complete. But Bronny still has to prove himself. He does not need to become a superstar. He does not need to become his father. What he needs is a real role. Defend, hit open threes, bring energy, protect the ball, and become a reliable bench guard. That is a realistic path, and it deserves to be judged fairly. If Cleveland brings him in, they must develop him with patience. Not as a marketing tool, not as a symbol, not as a shortcut to LeBron, but as a young player trying to build his own career. Because LeBron may be chasing the perfect ending, but Bronny is still trying to write his beginning. Cleveland's dream has a salary cap nightmare. For Cleveland fans, the dream is simple. LeBron comes home, Bronny follows, the Cavaliers reload for one last run, Akron becomes the center of the NBA again, and the story ends where it all began. But the NBA does not run on dream. It runs on contracts, cap space, roster spots, tax rules, and difficult decisions. And that is where Cleveland's perfect story becomes complicated. The Cavaliers already have expensive pieces. Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and James Harden all create major financial pressure. Adding LeBron is not as easy as opening the door and saying, "Welcome home." Someone has to sacrifice. Maybe LeBron takes less money. Maybe Cleveland builds a sign and trade. Maybe another player has to be moved. Maybe the bench gets thinner. And if Bronny is also part of the plan, the Cavaliers need even more roster flexibility. That is why this is dangerous. On paper, LeBron with Cleveland's core looks scary. He brings size, passing, leadership, playoff experience, and one of the greatest basketball minds ever. Even at 41, he can still change the way a team plays. But the hard questions remain. Who defends quick wings? Who takes fewer shots? Who sacrifices minutes? Who keeps the team young, fast, and balanced? Can Cleveland chase emotion without damaging the roster? That is the real test. Because if the Cavaliers get this right, it becomes one of the greatest full-circle stories in NBA history. But if they get it wrong, they could become older, more expensive, and less flexible. The heart says yes. Akron says yes. Cleveland says yes. But the salary cap does not care about memories. The Warriors are waiting in the shadows. Cleveland may have the emotional advantage, but Golden State has a different kind of power. A basketball dream. For years, NBA fans have imagined LeBron James and Stephen Curry playing together for real. Not in an all-star game, not in the Olympics. A full season, a playoff run. One final championship chase with two legends wearing the same jersey. That is why the Warriors cannot be ignored. Golden State cannot offer Akron. They cannot offer LeBron a hometown ending, but they can offer him Curry, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, championship experience, and a system built for meaningful basketball. LeBron already respects Curry. He has a strong relationship with Draymond. He knows Kerr's system. Joining Golden State would not feel like starting from zero. It would feel like walking into a room full of people who understand winning. That matters at this stage of his career. LeBron does not need a young team that still has to learn everything. He needs a team that already knows pressure, playoff adjustments, sacrifice, and championship standards. But the Warriors have problems too. They are older. Their money is tight. They may need to move contracts. And if Bronny is part of LeBron's decision, Golden State would have to create space for him too. Still, this is the Warriors. They have never been afraid of bold moves. Cleveland has home, but Golden State has Curry. And if LeBron chooses basketball fit over emotion, the Warriors might be the one team that can steal the story away from Cleveland, Denver, Minnesota, Miami, and the dark horses. This is not just a Cleveland versus Golden State race. Other teams are watching, waiting, and hoping LeBron gives them a chance. Denver may have the best basketball fit. Pairing LeBron with Nikola Jokic would create one of the smartest front courts in NBA history. Jokic could run the offense, LeBron could save energy, attack mismatches, and focus on winning moments instead of carrying every possession. That fit makes sense, but Denver lacks the emotional pull of Cleveland and the spotlight of Golden State. The basketball is beautiful, but the story may not be loud enough. Minnesota offers something different. Anthony Edwards represents the next generation. LeBron respects him, and playing beside a young star like Edwards could give LeBron a fresh role. Not the face of the future, but the veteran brain helping a rising superstar chase the next level. That would be exciting. But would LeBron really leave Los Angeles for Minnesota at this stage of his life? That is the question. Miami is always lurking because of history. Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Heat culture, and LeBron's championship past make them impossible to fully ignore. Philadelphia could also appear if the roster path makes sense. Every team has a pitch. Cleveland has home, Golden State has Curry, Denver has Jokic, Minnesota has Edwards, Miami has history, Philadelphia has market pressure, but every team also has a problem. Money, age, fit, depth. Bronny expectations. That is why LeBron is taking his time. He is not just choosing a team, he is choosing the final image of his career. And right now, nobody knows which ending he wants most. The emotional pull of home. No team can copy what Cleveland had. Home. For LeBron James, that word carries weight. Akron is not just where he grew up. It is where the legend began. It is where people saw him before the world did. It is where his story first became bigger than basketball. That is why every Cleveland rumor feels different. When LeBron left the first time, it hurt. When he came back, it healed. And when he delivered the 2016 championship, he gave Cleveland a moment the city will never forget. That banner changed everything. So if he comes back again, it would not be just another signing. It would be closure. It would be one final ride in the place where the story started. That is what makes the Akron video so powerful. LeBron knows what that city means. He knows what fans will think when they see him near Brandon Weems. He knows what happens when he likes a post about returning to Cleveland. With LeBron, every small move becomes a clue. But emotion can be dangerous. It can make fans ignore the salary cap. It can make a front office chase a beautiful story instead of a smart roster. It can make people believe the ending must be perfect just because the beginning was special. LeBron may love Cleveland and still choose another team. He may care about Akron and still decide Golden State, Denver, or Minnesota gives him a better basketball path. That is what makes this so tense. His heart may be pulling toward home, but the league is offering him other road. And if he does choose Cleveland, the reaction would be massive because everyone would understand what he is really choosing. Not just a team, a memory, a city, a final chapter that no other franchise can offer. 3 possible endings for LeBron. There are 3 ways this story can end. The first ending is the dream. LeBron returns to Cleveland. The Cavaliers make the money work. Bronny possibly joins him. Akron celebrates. Cleveland becomes the center of the NBA again. Every game becomes an event, and LeBron gets one last chance to finish where everything began. It would be powerful, but it would also be risky. If the team struggles, the same fans celebrating in July could start questioning everything by January. If Bronny becomes a distraction, the story could turn uncomfortable fast. The second ending is LeBron choosing another contender. Golden State gives him Curry. Denver gives him Jokic. Minnesota gives him Edwards. Another team could still surprise everyone. In this version, LeBron chooses basketball fit over hometown emotion. Cleveland fans would be disappointed, but the logic would be clear. At this stage, LeBron may want the cleanest path to winning, not the heaviest emotional story. The third ending is limbo. LeBron waits. Teams freeze. Cleveland keeps space open. Golden State pauses decisions. Bronny's future remains uncertain. Rumors grow louder. Every video, like dinner and photo, becomes evidence. That is the most dangerous path, because the longer this drags, the more pressure builds on everyone involved. So now the NBA waits. Will LeBron choose home? Will he choose the best chance to win? Will he choose the situation that protects Bronny? Or will he surprise the entire league again? The answer will decide not just where he plays next season, but how the final chapter of his career begins. Legacy, family, and the final decision. In the end, this story is not really about one viral video. The Akron footage may have started the fire, but it did not create the fuel. The fuel was already there. Years of Cleveland history, years of LeBron's connection to Northeast Ohio, years of fans wondering whether the final chapter could somehow return to the first page. Years of Bronny growing up under the brightest spotlight in basketball. Years of teams waiting for one more chance to pitch the greatest player of his generation. That is why this decision feels so heavy. LeBron James is not choosing like a normal free agent. He is choosing with history watching. Every option carries meaning. Cleveland is not just a team. It is home. Golden State is not just a contender. It is the possibility of joining Stephen Curry and creating one last impossible basketball image. Denver is not just another roster. It is perhaps the cleanest on-court fit beside Nikola Jokic. Minnesota is not just a dark horse. It is a chance to connect the old era with Anthony Edwards and the next wave of NBA superstardom. And then there is Bronny. That may be the most human part of the entire situation. Because behind all the cap sheets, rumors, headlines, and debate shows, there is a father trying to decide how much his son's future should matter in his own final career move. That is not easy. LeBron has spent his life carrying pressure. Now Bronny is learning what that pressure feels like from a different angle. The lesson here is simple but important. Legacy is not only about winning, it is about responsibility. It is about how you treat people when the cameras are on and when they are off. It is about whether a team can chase a superstar without turning a young player into a symbol instead of a person. It is about whether fans can debate basketball without attacking a son for having a famous father. It is about whether front offices can respect emotion without losing discipline. Cleveland has to be honest. If they want LeBron back, they need a real plan, not just nostalgia. They need to protect their roster, protect their future, and protect the locker room. Bringing LeBron home only works if the basketball supports the emotion. Otherwise, the story may look beautiful in July and painful by spring. LeBron has to be honest too. If he wants Cleveland, he must understand the weight of returning. If he wants Golden State, Denver, Minnesota, or another contender, he has to accept that some fans will feel disappointed. And if Bronny is part of the decision, then the situation must be handled with care, patience, and respect. Bronny also deserves space to become his own player. He should not be judged like a superstar just because his last name is James. He should be coached, challenged, developed, and respected like any young player trying to earn a role in the league. That is the peaceful way to look at it. Fans can be passionate without being cruel. Media can analyze without dehumanizing. Teams can compete without treating people like pieces on a board, because at the center of this story are not just contracts and rumors. There is a father, a son, a city, a franchise, and a fan base that still remembers what it felt like when LeBron brought Cleveland a championship. So what should LeBron choose? Strategically, Cleveland is the most meaningful ending if the roster math works. Golden State may be the most electric basketball story. Denver may give him the most efficient path to playing winning basketball without carrying everything. Minnesota may offer the best bridge into the next generation. But emotionally, nothing touches Akron. Nothing touches Cleveland. Nothing touches the idea of one final ride where it all began. And maybe that is why this decision is so difficult. Because LeBron is not just deciding where to play. He is deciding how the final chapter should feel. If you believe LeBron should go back to Cleveland and finish the story at home, comment 1. If you think he should chase one more ring with a stronger contender, comment 2. If you believe Bronny should be allowed to build his own path away from the pressure, comment 3. And if you want more NBA stories like this, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share it with another basketball fan, because the next move in this drama could change the entire league.